Yo, what's up? This is Splendid Radio on Pharcyde TV. My co-host is hitting the stage tonight, Jeremy Scipio. So it's just gonna be myself and Mr. Keith Williams tonight. What's happening with you, Keith?
How you doing today, sir?
Oh man, I'm cool. I'm cool. So man, Keith is one of my guys that I always say, and I've said it a million times on the podcast. I tend to be attracted to people, or I end up in the same space as people who are like at the top of their game when it comes to particular things. Like it's just for whatever reason. I can say most people I meet are, I'm not saying I'm at the highest level or nothing like that, but I think I'm doing all right. And but I tend to meet people that are doing, or that are far more knowledgeable about what they do than I am about the things that I do and the things that I'm involved in. And so I ran across Keith by happen chance, and he couldn't shake me after after the first conversation we had, which was by, I want to say I ended up in a space with meeting one of his business partners, but I might have got there earlier. The business partner wasn't there. So I had a chance to kind of like just talk with him, pick his mind a little bit. And everything outside of cannabis was like a great conversation. And then, him being so knowledgeable about the cannabis thing, I was kind of intrigued, like, man, and we'll get into it. I'm gonna build up who Keith is. So I'm not gonna just go so far with the whole, whatever. But anyway, Keith, when was the first time you heard hip hop, and what was the song?
Well, it's funny. My first experience to hip hop was actually "Rapper's Delight" by the Sugar Hill Gang. I'm gonna build up who Keith is, so I'm not gonna just.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No problem.
Go ahead.
Yeah, in Chicago, hip hop wasn't something that they played all the time. So you had to wait till nighttime after 11 o'clock, and it was one channel in Chicago, WGCI, used to play hip hop all night long. So "Rapper's Delight" was my first little taste of rap and hip hop.
It's interesting. I have family from Chicago, and I went to Chicago maybe when I was about 9 or 10 years old. And my memory of Chicago, there was a parade going on. I don't remember what it was. It might have been something a political, maybe a congressman running for office or something like that. But there was a parade, and I remember walking down the street, and I was walking with my aunt, and there was two guys that was walking towards me, and they're a little bit older than me, maybe like 13 or 14. And as we passed each other, the person who was closest to me passing me, he leaned over so far to bump my shoulder, he almost fell over. And I was aware enough that the more he leaned towards me, the more I got out of his way. And we kind of kept on moving. And I just remember saying, man, Chicago's real, man. You know what I'm saying? It was because see, in LA, you may have a gangbang, and then they may trip at the time they may have tripped on you because of like a color you wore or something like this. But in Chicago, it was just kind of like it had nothing to do with no colors, nothing to do with no nothing. The people were just harder to me. My experience was that the people were just harder.
Yeah, that Midwest is tough, man. I'll tell you that for sure.
Yeah, that hawk. And it's a trip because one of my buddies I ended up going to high school with, he came to my high school 11th grade. Yeah, he like 11th grade year. And he was from Chicago, and he was all about house music. And I thought he was the weirdest cat on the face, but he probably thought I was the weirdest cat on the face of the earth. You know what I'm saying? We both thought each other was weird, but I just could not catch house music. And then it was the funny thing about it, maybe that summer, my best friend at the time, his older buddy, was like, he was just exposed to a lot, you know what I'm saying? And he put us up on inner city, you know what I'm saying? And like from inner city, you know, the Jungle Brothers and somehow, and then like in the late 80s going into the 90s, it was a thing. And honestly, I feel there needs to be more light shined on it, but it was a hip house, you know what I'm saying? It was like there was a whole dang, what are those guys named? To You, they got that song Follow Me.
Oh yeah, shoot.
Something you, but yeah, those cats. And so I really got into hip house, you know what I'm saying? Like I really like it was a thing. It wasn't like where Drake and Beyonce, what we were talking earlier. It's not where Drake and Beyonce are now, where they're doing dance music, but it was an actual thing of hip hop and house music having a relationship, which, you know, the Jungle Brothers, that song, Girl, I'll House You, you know what I'm saying? So with all that being said, did you ever think that hip hop would be as large as it is?
Well, you know, at the time, no. I mean, it was just a certain specific time that it came on. We used to take cassette tapes and record it and, you know, kind of play it the whole rest of the week. But I think 2006, it hit, what, a $10 billion industry per year. And then in 2016, well, we almost close to $16 billion. So, hey, hip hop is here to stay. I can tell you that.
Yeah, you know, so, you know, my buddies in high school were the Pharcyde, and it's crazy because I can remember telling one of the members, like, you want to be an entertainer, you better get a real job, you know what I'm saying? Him over there, he was just like destined to be an entertainer. And I remember just being like, you need to get a real job. And when I knew that hip hop was like an industry, is when like the clothing companies and the beverage companies were reaching out to artists, and beyond just giving them some free stuff. And I've said this story a million times, I'll say it again. You know, me watching Sprite give Busta Rhymes the budget to shoot commercials, and seeing a rapper in like a live action commercial with stunt, you could tell that there were stunt people in it and whatnot. But I was kind of like, man, you know, hip hop is like it's a big deal. You know what I'm saying? It's not just some music that connected with me, which I was, you know, probably middle class, suburban kid, you know what I'm saying? Fascinated by this brand new thing. It had caught the eye of like major industry, and that was kind of amazing for me to watch. So I kind of jumped ahead of myself when I told you my little story about being in Chicago. So can you tell us about what city you grew up in?
Well, Chicago, Illinois, on the west side, which I call it the best side. You know, Kanye, you know, he a Chicago native, but he grew up on that south side, whole total different beast.
Okay. So while you were going to junior high school or middle school, what was like the soundtrack going on, like while you were going to middle school, the music, and not just hip hop, but like what was the music that was going on at that time?
Well, you know, I went to grammar school in the 80s, so you had Curtis Blow the Breaks, you had Ron DMC, Sucker MC, you had Dougie Fresh and the Get Fresh crew, LL Cool J, Rock the Bell, MC Shan, The Bridge, Ice-T, 6 in the Morning. I mean, it was, you know, hip hop was more urban, more culture, you know, like you mentioned the clothes, it was a lifestyle. And, you know, I could just remember what they had, Jabot jeans at the time, you know, it was hip hop, it was baggy, it was, you know, it felt urban.
Man, it's so funny you say that. I was watching an episode, I'm not sure, did you ever watch the Boondocks?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I was watching an episode of the Boondocks over the weekend, and there was an episode where I guess Uncle Ruckus was trying to look urban or something. He had a t-shirt that was like down to his knees. He had a t-shirt and some baggy pants. And I was like, man, fools really used to dress like that, man. Like really used to wear super oversized clothes.
Yeah. Hey, guilty.
Me too, man. Me too. Now I can wear a 40 size pair of jeans. But back when I was a 26, I was still wearing 40 size 40 jeans on them. So your senior year of high school, you in high school, your senior year, you're about to graduate. At that point, what did you think your path was going to be?
You know, at the time I was playing basketball, I had 3 colleges that had offered me scholarships: Marquette in Wisconsin, Chicago State, and then Florida State. And at that particular time, it was in the 90s, early 90s. They had a murder on the campus of Florida State. So I was definitely turned off with, going there. And, I ended up going to a local college, and I played, like my freshman year, and then, I kind of gave basketball up. My other path would have been construction. I actually went to a vocational school. The school I went to, Prosser, played CVS, which Jawan Howard, part of the 5-5. We played them in the final 16. So, I always tell people basketball is comprehensive, and you know better than your competition. And in Chicago, it's some really good competition there, with the CVSs and the Kings. It's just that, as I started to go farther into basketball, I didn't have a jump shot and being able to make my own shot the way I wanted to. So at a certain point, I came to a crossroad where it was either get an education or, utilize this vocational certificate that I had at the time.
Okay. So we talked about some hip hop. We talked about your culture, the soundtrack, you growing up and everything. With the new hip hop or the newer hip hop going on, I had a real hard time adjusting, man. I really had a hard time, man. Like it was very difficult. Now this is another story that I've told on the podcast before. I had a buddy who was a DJ, and he DJs on a couple of podcasts, and he also DJs or I don't know if he still does, but I know he DJs some clubs. And so I said to him, I was like, man, you're in the mix. So you have to have a lot of music coming through you, and I know you're part of a record pool, and you guys sit down and have these meetings and you listen to music and all this. And I was like, man, how do you deal with like the new music? And he said, well, how do you feel about it? And I said, well, I think it's garbage. You know what I'm saying? I really don't like a whole lot of it. And he said, you're listening to it wrong. And I said, listening to it wrong? He said, you're grading the hip hop of today with the unfiltered hip hop that we had like in 86, 87, 88, 89. And he said, when you're listening to it, you're probably listening for a dope beat, a dope rhyme, dope hook, you know what I'm saying? A message of some sort or whatnot. And he's like, the music that people make now, a lot of the kids, some can make it complete the way that we used to have it. But he said a lot of the kids, you may get a dope beat, you may get a dope hook, or you may get a dope rap, but you might not get all 3. And so when I started listening to it like that, I found that I did like some of the music. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, man, I sound like this old guy. You know what I'm saying? This old dude that's like, well, back in my day, woo, 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 where when I graded it on, let's say, secular contemporary music of today, it's like, well, man, compared, if you look at the curve of music, there are some guys that rise, higher than others. And with that being said, Kendrick Lamar was one of the newer. I would say that I'll say ASAP Rocky. Brown put me up on ASAP Rocky, and I peeped his first album, and I liked the music. I really liked the music, and he could rap and he could sing, and it wasn't like it wasn't corny to me. And I was like, oh, okay, so maybe I've been hard on the whole new culture thing or whatever. And then with Kendrick's The Pimp a Butterfly, I felt like The Pimp a Butterfly was kind of like a jazz. It was almost like a spoken word jazz album that he made for like his, I won't say his mom and dad, but I'll say maybe aunts and uncles, like house part, like a family, party type thing. And so there was a question that I would always ask, whether it was on the podcast, before the podcast, or after the podcast when speaking to guests. And I had been kind of bothered because I felt like in the culture of music today, it seemed like no one was speaking on political issue like that. Now, there are people that do speak on political issue, but the way they speak on political issue is like, maybe it's, I won't say too passionate, but so passionate to where the message gets lost with me. So it's like nothing I can, with all the passion, it's something I can't connect to. But about a month or so ago, I watched the Kendrick Lamar video where he morphed from O.J. Simpson into Jussie Smollett and Nipsey Hussle and Kanye West. And the thing about it that was genius to me was that it was a very political song talking about the climate of where we are right now. But he didn't point his finger as to like go into individual circumstances and individual instances and whatnot, which I felt that was genius, because by him not making it about, certain things, people didn't get lost in their politics. You know what I'm saying? They didn't get lost in, oh, Jussie Smollett supposedly did this, or O.J. Simpson supposedly did that, or Nipsey Hussle, gangbanger, turn life around, a leader, like really, a guy that truly became a leader of some sorts. And so, with that being said, did you see the Kendrick video?
Yes, I did see
it. And how did it connect with you?
So you got to remember, like, every time Kendrick releases an album, he releases one of these hearts, right? And with this one, it's kind of his brain dump on what's going on in the world and his perspective of it. He kind of speaking on it. And what I like about like this album, this one particular song, is the fact that it showed that we as Black people, we're not monolithic. We are multifaceted. So, I remember when Oprah didn't want Kanye West on her show, because he was a rapper, right? Mm-hmm. But now Kanye got more money than Oprah. Mm-hmm. And it's like, we have to get beyond the context of right and wrong, good and bad, and get down to the fact that we as Black people experience trauma. And through that trauma, we're going to show up. And we have to now allow ourselves to we got to be accepted by one another, even to begin that healing process. So what I like that was genius about the son, as he morphed from one person to the other, he never pointed fingers that it was bad. He kind of highlighted, hey, even though I'm dealing with bipolar, I'm still a man. Even though, like, and I mean, listen, I remember they play videos in the gym. I remember just sitting there, like, looking at it and taking it all in, and was really impressed. Like, Kendrick Lamar is of the newer rappers, is probably one of my favorite, because he's able to speak to modern problems, but yet give it a wide open perspective.
And I'll add this to that, and then I'll move on. The genius part was that for that song, he sampled one of the most political icons, musical icons we had, which was Marvin Gaye, which, man, Marvin Gaye was not scared to make what's going on. You know what I'm saying?
Right?
He was not scared to make music about our social climate or like where we are, where we were. So yeah, I thought that Kendrick video and album was dope too. So now that I've kind of built you up as a person and not a thing, and we kind of got like that part out the way, tell me, what is Bel Air Cannabis Company?
So first of all, I want to pay homage to my late partner, Donnie Anderson. Yeah. Donnie created Bel Air, which is really an art and culture cannabis brand. When you think about, you know, music and cannabis, there has always been a relationship throughout history. You know, part of the training that I received is the history of cannabis. Just about every author, whether it be Muslim, whether it be Christian, there were traces of cannabis there. They used it as incense as they prayed. So you have to remember that there's always a relationship between cannabis, culture, and music. What Donnie wanted to do with Bel Air is create something for us, the Black and Brown. When you think about the Black and Brown community, what are the type of weed that we like? Indicas, body highs, OGs, glues, cakes. So one of the things that we want to do, that Donnie wanted to do with Bel Air is actually have something that was for us, by us.
Okay. And it's interesting you say that because Donnie was an interesting cat, man. It's like, you know, Donnie had the very serious on 10 mode to the personality, but then there was a very compassionate part also where he really took it heartfelt when it came to our people in cannabis. You know what I'm saying? And I'll give a shout out to the Virgil Grant. You know what I'm saying? Both of them kind of, if you talk about cannabis to them and people of color, they kind of get this anger, this passionate anger about them, where they just like, man, you know, we're the ones that have been, you know, speaking as Donnie or Virgil, like they felt that, you know, they had been disparaged and people of color had been disparaged so much and had, you know, gone to jail and fined and prison and just like all this stuff behind it. And then once the glimpse of legalization comes, all the people that don't look like you and me kind of cut the line. kind of cut the line to the benefit. And I know that what Donnie and Virgil were doing at one point was kind of bringing awareness to and creating education for people that wanted to know about cannabis beyond consumption. You know what I'm saying? And dealing kind of with the business aspect. And like, you know, one of the things that I kind of propped Virgil up on was that, you know, he's helped a couple of cats out of prison. You know what I'm saying? Like really came, like one cat that I know that he helped. Well, no, I know two cats that he helped that really, like, man, he really created a way for them to feed their families and a pathway to, you know, be involved in cannabis, but from a legal aspect.
Yeah, you know what? And let me just step back for a second and explain a little bit more about the social equity program. So when you look at who was impacted by the war on drugs, it was the Black and Brown communities. 85% of the people, and these are statistics from the documentary 13, Ava DuVernay's 13, but 85% of the people that were locked up were Black and Brown. And although they quoted it as the war on drugs, which was supposed to go after cocaine and heroin or opiates, it literally went after people that had possession or use of cannabis. So when you start breaking down these zip codes, they were all pretty much Black or brown communities. So what the social equity program is supposed to do is to allow the people that were most impacted a chance to be part of the industry. But what you pointed out that's so ironic, when the licenses were actually passed out, we had to go and do lawsuits and all type of things just so they could actually have licenses. And that's sad because we already know they were impacted. So they didn't want to expunge their records. And then at the same time, you're not going to give them the license. So it's still a fight. You know, and you know, I appreciate, you know, you allowing me to like get the message out. Like, we should not be celebrating into that 4% nationally of Black people that are in cannabis is, you know, double digits or better. And it's not because people don't want to do it. There are a lot of barriers to this cannabis industry.
Okay. So, you know, beyond the business or whatever, we have, you and I, we have a personal relationship. And there was one thing that you told me about, and you seemed kind of excited about it. And it was one of those things where I say, like, I meet people and they're like, I feel that I'm at a cool point of what I do. And then I meet people that are like at a higher level, like so much higher than me. And it inspires me. And one of the things that you told me about was you becoming a ganjaneer. And you know, it was interesting to me because when I was in my 30s, I was just talking about it today. I was in my 30s and I was dating this I hung out with this older lady a little bit, but I met her at a club, you know what I'm saying? But she was cool, just whatever. And you know, I didn't start drinking liquor until I was in my like late 20s and early 30s. And so like the best liquor that I would have would be like some Hennessy VSOP or some Remy Martin VSOP, or, you know, whatever wine I would get from a liquor store or something. Not, I wouldn't get just, you know, Mad Dog or nothing like that, but it, you know, it wouldn't be dope wine. I'm sure it's probably about $6. I couldn't see myself paying more than $6 or $11 a bottle for some wine. So
Boone's Farm.
I was better than Boone's, but it was better than Boone's. But it, you know, the wine that I had, it really didn't have a high alcohol content. And so I, you know, I thought I was doing a little something. So I had opened the bottle maybe a month or so ago, and I never drank wine. So, you know, I probably had somebody over that did. So I poured them a glass or a little bit of a glass or something. And I thought I was doing something. And I was like, you want some wine? You know, she's like, what you got to drink? And I was like, oh, I got some wine. So I go over there and I pour her some and I pour me some. And she tastes it. And she said, boy, this stuff is bad. and not bad like, you know, but she meant bad like it's gone bad. You know what I'm saying? Which I didn't think, you know, wine could go bad. I don't know anything about corking and putting in the, you know, refrigerator or just whatever. And so she explained to me that she was the alcohol version of a ganjier, and that her job, she worked at steakhouses and she would basically do their wine purchasing and taste all of their wine. Like before it, you know, before a certain wine was going to be offered to customers or clients or whatever, you know, she would sample the wine, taste the wine. So I was like, oh man, I look like an idiot. You know what I'm saying? I gave her some spoiled wine. And not only is she with her wit enough to know that I gave her some spoiled wine, but I forget the name of it, but the alcohol version of a ganjier, where she went to Paris and, you know, she went to Paris and studied and tasted, and she was up in Napa Valley and whatnot. So I say all that to say, I was talking to you and you were telling me how you were studying and you had to go up north and do something. And you told me that you became a ganjaneer. So with all that being said, explain to the common folk what a ganjaneer is.
Okay, so in the wine industry, it's a sommelier.
Okay.
And basically what a ganjier is, it's a person that's trained and certified as a master of cannabis. It's somebody that can expertly guide and any consumer to their ideal product or experience. So what you know, if you talk to anybody that used cannabis during prohibition, it was, you know, pretty much in secretive, and there wasn't a lot of knowledge that could be, you know, talked about. Like, hey, how is that affecting your body, or why are you taking it? So one of the things what ganjiers do is we look at the terpene profile. So if you think about the THC as the engine of the plant, the terpene profile is more or less the steering wheel, how it will affect your body, whether it be a head high or a body high. Now, really what's interesting about that, when you actually start talking about ailments like either anxiety, stress, depression, what scientists have figured out is terpene profile with myrcene, limonene, or pinene can actually, they have antioxidants in there, and what it'll do is it'll actually get you in a better mood and relax you. So what we're really trying to get down to is find out, well, what is the reason why you utilizing the cannabis? And let me be able to give you, and we don't call them strains, we call them cultivars. Now, I think that's probably something that I should explain. When you're talking about genetics, right? Genetics are basically like the history of the plant, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, when you talk about phenotype, it's almost like the brother and sister. So I'm the youngest of 7. I got 2 sisters and 4 brothers, and all of us are different. So when you phenotyping, you can have the same genetics, but it'll express itself differently. Mm-hmm. So one of the reasons why you always want to phenotype hunt, you ever heard of GG4, Gorilla Glue number 4? Mm-hmm. Well, it was the 4th phenotype that they found that expressed itself in a way that was different than all the others. Okay. So that's the main reason why when you look at phenotype and you look at the genetics of it, this is how you can breed flowers for a certain potency and a certain terpene profile. So that's what the cannabis industry is more or less going to. Once we can find out what is the ailment, whether it be pain, whether it be depression, whether it be, just sometimes you have gastrointestinal problems where you can now use cannabis, and what it'll do is, depending on what the ailment is, we can give you terpene profiles to actually resolve them.
Oh, wow. You know, it's interesting you say that. I'm not sure if I saw it on Netflix or if it was something on HBO, but I saw this Vice documentary. It was probably HBO. It's probably HBO. I saw this Vice documentary, and they had these cats. They were white guys. You know, they weren't black or brown. So I won't say what I'm gonna throw them in a jar, but they weren't black or brown. And they went to Africa in search of genetics. Mm-hmm. And the thing the thing that really bothered me about it was they were going like from tribe to tribe, and like I know at one of the tribes they gave the elder of the tribe like $500 or $600, and then they were able to go into the cannabis fields and like get seeds, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so they were basically going on a tour through Africa to get these genetics. And in the interview, the guy said, by us gathering these genetics, they're gonna these African genetics are gonna. It was he said it in a way that was kind of like, it was something to the tone of, it's going to be responsible for millions of dollars generated years to come. You know what I'm saying? Wow. And so I felt a certain kind of way about it, because I was like, man, so you're coming into this African village. It's cool that you're employing a couple African people to roll with you, because they were driving some of the way, they were flying some of the way, they got on these boats where they had to go like 10 hours on a boat, and just, all this storyline stuff to get to where they was going. But it really bothered me that that these cats weren't like, they weren't giving back. Like they was literally going to Africa, running through these couple of tribes, grabbing these genetics, saying that it was going to, you know, the genetics were going to contribute to millions of dollars. And I can't remember the exact number, but I want to say they might have said something like 60 million or so. It was something huge. It wasn't like a little million, like 1 or 2 or something like that. And I kind of felt like, well, the interviewer said, he asked the question. He said, you know, don't you feel kind of funny, you know, not really, you know, paying the people or whatever? And then the guy was just kind of like, well, you know, that's just kind of how it is. You know what I'm saying? You know, and they didn't elaborate on it too much, but it really just made me feel kind of like, man, it made me feel horrible, man.
Well, here's the funny thing about that. A lot of people don't realize, I think the first cannabis strand was found somewhere in China. And throughout history, the Moors, who were men of color, would move cannabis through the Silk Roads. So it was traded just like any other currency. Hey, I have this medicine. If you have, you know, something of value, we can trade, you know, with the bartering system. So they found remnants of cannabis in North America, like even before Christopher Columbus or Magellan actually got here, because the Moors were, you know, trading throughout the world. So you have to understand, like, this genetics game that you're speaking of is going on right now. If you get a clone from one of these genetic houses, they want 2% of your sales in order for you to grow that out and sell it to the public. So, you know, when they went over to Africa and actually took these, you know, cuts from them, these cultivars, that's the difference between a cultivar and a strand. COVID-19 was a strain. A cultivar is basically the genetics of a plant that, you know, through the seeds is being passed down. So we're getting away from calling them strains because they're not diseases or viruses. They're actually living organisms. So that's one of the things that we learned, you know, from being ganjiers, is really trying to classify the plant as it is. I mean, it's botany at the end of the day.
Okay. Yeah, that's something. But if nothing else, it's a cool name. You know, yeah. if nothing else. So it's a trip. When I talk to people about you, I'll never really mention your name, but I'll the example I'll give is, okay, say if you wanted a purple pit bull with orange dots on it, I know a cat who would know what you need to cross and what you need to mix it with to get that thing. And that's like, I guess kind of, you know, where your space is. Now, my question is, there's like hundreds and hundreds of, what's that new word that we're going to refer to
cultivars.
Cultivars. Okay. There's hundreds of cultivars. Now, when I was coming up, there was either bomb or there was dirt, and people loved them both, man. You know, whether it was pride that made them like either of them, but people loved them both. You know what I'm saying? And so, now there's so many names, there's so many things, and it's interesting because I talk to people and I'll see somebody have something that I may say, man, that looks like it's, you know, that just looks like it's great to me. And then someone else will be like, nah, man, that's, you know, trash or wow, just whatever. And I'm kind of scratching my head and I'm like, you know, you have so many different, it's like you go to a donut shop, no pun intended, but you're gonna have apple fritters, you're gonna have glazed donuts, you're gonna have the cinnamon twist, you're gonna have the French cruller. I'm a foodie too, so that I go on with that forever. But you have all this stuff, and all of them are sweet, and all of them are good. So, what are the problems that people are running into that deal with genetics and cultivating cannabis, with there being so many strains, and then at the same time everybody wanting something different, and then getting caught up with the whole names and all that kind of stuff?
So you let's talk about the constraints, because I think that a lot of the popular names that you're seeing was derived from some of the constraints. So if you remember back in the day, they had Blue Dream. Mm-hmm. Blue Dream was a sativa. Mostly all of your sativas are going to take 9 to 12 weeks to grow. Your OGs will grow in 8 weeks. So nobody wants to tie up their flowering rooms for 12 weeks. So what you start seeing is this cross breeding to try to reduce that cycle time. So that's where you get your hybrids at. So it's not like Gorilla Glue. We just talked about that. Gorilla Glue is more of a sativa than it is an indica, because it takes 9 to 10 weeks to grow. And that's kind of how you can tell, like, where's genetics at based on the length of time that is growing. Mm. The other thing is, it always comes back to what is the primary ailment that you're trying to treat or resolve? Because a lot of these characteristics or traits, or how it's going to express itself, you can take 2 plants that are sativas and the end result might be an indica hybrid. Again, the 2 of them going to go together, and they're going to express themselves. Now, from the seeds of those 2 plants, what we have to do is, it takes 6 to 8 months to kind of stabilize it, to make sure that once I get that mom plant, every cut that I get out there is going to be the same THC, the same terpene profile. So once you get that plant stabilized and you actually start cutting it in a commercial process, now I don't care how many times you cut it, even the seeds that come from it is always going to produce that same result. Wow.
So with that being said, it's kind of like so you breed it, you keep it going until it becomes something of it, until that is what it is, I guess.
Yes. And that's pretty much like the plant is, when you put it in the right environment, like you sexing it, the pollen is there, gonna keep that separated. And now, as it starts to stabilize in that mom, every single one of those cuts should literally be the same. I'm getting the same effects off each one of them. Even when I test it, and get a COA for it, I'm getting the same results from it. That's when you know that, hey, that plant's stable.
So I know a cat who brags on he has a 20-year-old mother that he clips on. Now, with the 20-year-old mother, wouldn't the genetics get worn down or wore out or something? Or maybe he's saying he has the relatives of a 20-year-old mother that he's had to put something back in? Because I've heard stories of, well, it's not even a story. I've known, I can say I've known somebody who cultivated something, and they did it for like 10 years or 12 years. And one of the defects of it is that it wouldn't burn anymore. It was like very difficult. It was like very difficult. That was something that was happening with it. It was like, and it totally cured and everything, but it was just, it had just really ran its course. So with a 20-year-old mother, would that mother still have the same potency to still produce the offspring of whatever? Or, because what I was thinking was, maybe they kept cutting off of this mother because they liked what the mother was, and that it was not necessarily that what they were getting from the mother was at the level of what it used to be.
Right. Because one of the things that if you know, hey, these genetics is this, what you want to do is you want to sex that plant right away so you can create seeds. Now, once I got the seeds, I can put them to the side. I can grow my mom out. What we try to do is after you done cut that mom 6 times, you want to kind of go ahead and just let it flower on out and pop you another seed. That's kind of the rules that we use so we don't utilize
Overbreed.
overbreed them. But I know people that have used them more than 6 times and they don't see anything wrong with it. I've asked, like, hey, can you see any difference in the COA where the amount of THC or the total cannabinoids that's in the plant? But we just, again, this is a new industry, so we haven't actually got to that point where we can do a test, a control test to show, hey, this is 6 times potency, this is 12 times potency. Is there a difference?
Okay, so THC counts. I do some printing for the cannabis industry, and on some of the stuff that I print, we have to do labels and stuff like that have the metric information, and they'll say THC count, blah, 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 blah. Is it possible for something to have a lower THC count than something else, but still be stronger?
Yes. Now, let me explain that one. So earlier we talked about that terpene profile.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things that you have to remember, the THC is just the engine, and the terpene profile is going to tell you exactly how it's going to affect you. It might affect you in your shoulders, it might affect you in your head, your body. Now, when you're talking about sativas, you really don't want the sativa being a head high. You really don't want that to be a lot of THC. You want it to actually have some anti-inflammatories. Now, I'm going to share this with you. The United States of America has had a patent for cannabis since 1998, which in the patent, it says that it's a cure for dementia, Alzheimer's, and brain plaque. So we already know that the medicinal properties of the cannabis plant to deal with the brain itself, but you don't want a lot of THC when you're dealing with the brain. You want a terpene profile that got antioxidants, anti-inflammatories. So now what it's doing is it's actually relieving the brain and allowing, the proper functions to come back to normal or equilibrium.
Mm-hmm. Dang.
Now, to specifically answer that question, you got a handful of strands out there that I call them middle of the road, 18 to 22%, that have it's a terpene profile called humulene, caryophyllene. These are different terpene profiles. Now, your body has an endocannabinoid system. Okay, so if you're a chronic smoker, once you fill that system up, all the rest of it is basically just going to urinate it out. Well, what happens is if I'm using one particular terpene profile and I change to another one, it's going to hit you totally different. So even though it's an 18%er, because it's a different terpene profile than what you've been using before, it's going to have a total different effect.
Okay, that's some deep cannabis talk, man. It's like it's almost like talking about what's in some food that tastes really good. It's just like, man, it's beautiful, but it's over my head a little bit, but it's whatever. But nah, man, that's a beautiful thing. So you said that, when you were coming up, you played basketball, that was your thing and whatnot. What were your thoughts on the finals?
Man, when I look at that Golden State team, you got an aging Steph Curry, you have Draymond Green that, aging, been hurt, most of the year. And then you have a Klay Thompson that's coming back from an injury. But then you had Wiggins. You had, some role players that actually wanted that championship, who actually showed up. Golden State, I'm gonna say they redeemed themselves from the time when Kevin Durant left and they said that they would never win a championship again. So like I celebrated with them because they made a lot of people, you know, they showed people what they were about and then let themselves be labeled. And I think that's the heart of a champion.
So I'm about to give a confession that I made a couple times on the podcast, but we're gonna do it right now because it's relevant a little bit. So, you know, growing up in LA, the Lakers, the Dream Team, that was my man. That was just like all the excitement. That was just everything, you know, Magic and those guys running down the court and doing the no look passing and all that kind of stuff, just like really feeling each other. You know what I'm saying? Like they didn't have to look at each other. They literally felt each other on the court and could just pass and do all that kind of stuff, which was really exciting to me. So back when you get Shaq and Kobe, they're not getting along. It's kind of public, but not really public. And they're both alpha. And then Shaq leaves, you know, due to Kobe, but Shaq leaves. Now, when that happened, kind of broke my heart, man. It kind of broke my heart. And I was off the Lakers, though. I was off the Lakers. I was like, man, it can't be about one man. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, it just can't be about one man. So I said, I got to choose a basketball team. I got to have a team. So, you know, which team that I just, resonated with, man.
Wait, man, look, you didn't go over to the dark side, did you?
Come on, man. You know I did. You know I did. That's why I had to tell it. You know I did. I was Celtics all day, man. I was like, man, y'all, okay. You know what I'm saying? Okay. And I was right.
Wow. Look, so me, when I was in Chicago, now I'm gonna tell you just how much of a Laker fan I was. So you remember the weapons, right? The all-star weapons. Bird had some, and Magic had some, right? Man, my mom went out and bought my brother the Magics and bought me the Birds, man. I wouldn't even wear them shoes, man. I refused to do it. I said, well, I can't do it. I can't do it. But listen, the NBA is going to have a tough time with the Warriors because you got Kuminga and what's the other guy named Wiseman, the 7-footer. Mm-hmm. The Warriors then got younger, and when you look at the rest of the league, it's like who's out there that's going to compete with them?
I'll tell you. So my purpose of telling you the story about the Celtics and the Lakers and all that was the reason that the Warriors won that series. One reason, they played well as a team. Yes. And you get all these other teams, that was kind of what, you know, had pushed me off. And then after the Celtics, then I became a Clipper fan. You know what I'm saying? I was really.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. Now I'm talking Blake Griffin Clippers. I'm talking Blake, but I'm gonna tell you why. I went to a Clippers game on a fluke. Somebody had a Staples box or something like that, and I was just in one of those moods where if the homie called me and say he got a box and come through, I'm coming through. Like, man, if all I gotta do is pay for parking and I can go and eat some good food and see some entertainment or whatever, okay, I'm game. I went to the game and the Celtics played, I'm sorry, not the Celtics, but the Clippers, they were playing like a college ball team. Like it was a fast pace. They were really playing. And I liked that. That's what I missed about like all the super NBA teams and whatnot. They played, but it was more like hot dogging and not really as a team. And when I look at the Warriors, I saw a well-oiled machine, man. Yeah. Like you could tell, like if there was egos out there, you couldn't see them. You know what I'm saying? Everybody wanted the dub. Like that was the thing. It wasn't like, you know, you have some of these basketball teams where you have cats that are on the same team dissing each other on the court, and just seeing all that, and that takes away for me. You know what I'm saying? That would just take away. But in my opinion, the Warriors won because they played as a team, regardless of the age, regardless of the injury, regardless, whatever. They just really played well as a team.
Oh no, I agree 100%. I think the one thing, John Morant won most improved, right, last year. Mm-hmm. My question is, Jordan Poole came from the G League and won a finals. Shouldn't he have won most improved?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
yeah. If you come from the G's, you know what I'm saying? if you're coming from the G's. So my next question, has faith played a role in your decision making?
Absolutely. One of the things I always say, that man has three parts: body, mind, and spirit. And, having faith and having acknowledgement for your spiritual side, it only makes things, it brings balance to life. One of the things that I try not to do is, when I wake up in the morning, I acknowledge God before I do anything, because, I'm just thanking him for allowing me to see another day. Mm-hmm. And then, once I thank him for that, my next request is, help me to live my purpose on earth. Help me to be able to shine my light and to help others. So absolutely, every decision I make, it has a faith component to it.
I had the experience of riding with you in your car, and it's interesting because I never would have guessed you listen to the kind of music that you're musical. But then that's like, why would I just put you in a box like that? But the house music you were playing, I don't know if you already had it on or I told you I like house music or whatever, but you put something on your playlist and I was like, dang, it ain't stopping. And I listen to about 8 hours of house a day, like literally, that's what plays at my office. And I was like, dang, he's got the Chicago cuts, and it's just like on and on and on and on and on. With that being said, who would you say is your major musical influence?
I gotta say Earth, Wind, and Fire, man. Like I'm old school, Confunction, Average White Band. Like,
yeah,
to me, like live music and just, like it's everything. And see, me being the youngest of 7, like I got sisters and brothers that are baby boomers, so I got a chance to listen to their music. I got a brother that's 7 years older than me, so I had a wide rainbow of music that I had a chance to listen to.
Okay, no, that makes a lot of sense. So, what's your favorite documentary?
13 by Ava DuVernay, man. You saw it?
You know what? I saw a little bit of it and I didn't watch it. I'll tell you something interesting. So, as kind of like the Pharcyde came up and the whole Good Life and Project Blow thing was going on, and she was always out there with a camcorder, man. And the thing about it was, like, when you almost had to be rich to have a camcorder, because we're not talking like now, the age of phones and all that. Like, she had a camcorder when there was a purpose to having a camcorder, like a true purpose to having a camcorder. And she was always like on the scene documenting all this stuff. And it was really kind of heartfelt when I saw her link with the Oprah Winfrey's and whatnot, and her really go from being the person. It's almost like so there was like a renaissance in Los Angeles, and I was fortunate enough to kind of to witness it with hip hop. And so, like, I remember a story that I watched Ava tell, and I remembered what she was talking about. And she said, I knew that what the kids were doing was special when you had, I want to say it was Shannon Doherty from 90210, the TV show, driving the parking lot of the Good Life Cafe, doing little circles in her Range Rover. Like we would like so that was like the thing, like actors, and not so much musicians, but like actors would actually come down, not necessarily flossing on people, but like that was part of them. They wouldn't go in to watch the freestyle rapping and the DJ and all that kind of stuff, but they would kind of hit the parking lot and do like little laps and stuff like that. And I was like, what I'm witnessing here in LA is something special. Like it's getting the attention where the show Moesha, Fifth Street Dicks was actually a jazz club. It was a very small jazz club, and like the whole Moesha thing was kind of like a spin off of Leimert Park, which I thought that was kind of, dope. So, if you had a biopic, who would play you?
I would say Morris Chestnut.
He said Morris Chestnut.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I just like how he carry himself. And I think he would, like actually bring, my wit and wisdom to the screen.
You want me to tell you who would also be good?
Who?
Wood Harris.
Woody Harris?
Wood Harris. And he's from Chicago. And Wood Harris is the guy who played A in Paid in Full.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, he's from Chicago. He's from Chicago. And it's funny, I saw him do an interview, and somebody was asking him questions about what actors, what level of acting does he want to get to, and what actors does he look up to, and all this, that, and the other. And somehow something came up, but he basically said he thought he was better than Denzel Washington. and he was like, man, that's my opinion. You know what I'm saying? But he's a hell of an actor, but he's somebody that I've always gravitated to since The Wire, since Paid in Full. He in BMF, he has a good role in BMF. You know what I'm saying? It's dope. So anyway, that's what's up with that. What's the best advice anyone's ever given you?
The best advice that I've ever received is that my word and my actions have to match. That the very core of integrity is that your word and your actions have to match. Once I took that to heart, it's almost like I could be the architect of my life. I say it and then I do it. And that has been the guide or what I would call the cliff note to my life.
Okay. Nah, that's tight. A motivational person in your life.
Man, my mom, I ain't gonna lie to you, she was a gangster. She raised the 7 of us, and I think she was about 5'7", 5'8". But the one thing that I could remember from my mom is she was the type of leader that would show you and hold you accountable for what she showed me. I remember the time I was complaining to her about doing my homework and playing sports. I'm like, Ma, it's a lot, this, that, and other. My mom went back to school. Both my mom and dad came from the South, and they were both the oldest children, so they had to quit school to go get jobs to, help feed the family. So my mom decided to go back and get her GED at 50, and then she entered into junior college. At the time, it was Luke College. At the time, now it's Harold Washington. And what I remember about this, when she graduated, she made a beeline from the stage and she handed me her diploma. And she said, if I can do this with a husband, 7 kids and grandchildren, she was like, what more can you do? And it was like, I just sat there and I really couldn't articulate words. So it was like, I get it, Mom. I got to do my thing.
That's kind of where I am right now, man. I'm going harder right now than I've ever gone in my life, man. Like literally, like do harder than my 20s, harder than everything. Cause I'll share with you something that I say to people sometimes. I say, man, if they would have told us when we were in our young teens or preteens what growing up was about, it would have sucked all the fun out of it, man.
It would, yeah.
It would have sucked all the fun. And so I'm looking at it, and it's like every day I wake up and I'm kind of like, man, my situation could be so much worse. It excites me to go out and take a handful of life. You know what I'm saying? Like to really just go out and get a handful of life every day. Like, man, I'm blessed. I saw, I was talking to Brown today. And yeah, I was talking to him, and I was telling him about this clip that was on Instagram where there was this guy and he's rapping and he doesn't have any arms, and he was just like really busted and he didn't have any arms. And I was telling Brown, I was like, man, I see stuff like that and I say, we don't have no excuse, man. Like, man, this dude, like, man, I got 2 arms that are pretty like 95% functional arms and hands and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, dude, this guy has to, like, how does he eat? Like, how does he dress? Like, how, like all this stuff. And so my thing is like, man, as long as God's giving it to me, man, I'm going, man, he not going to be able to say I came at it with no blasphemy in the sense of me not, accepting my blessings and trying to, just really do the most and be the best that I can be. Who would you like to work with in the cultivation world?
It's a couple of people. I met Steve D'Angelo. I went down to Harborside. I had an opportunity to meet Swami when I went up to Humble. I actually met Frenchie before he passed away. Oh, that's a good one. Like, I even met Kevin Jordy. I'm trying to think, like, who would, I would say, Felipe. It's a breeder out of New York. Right now they got a huge sour diesel scene going on, mixing sours with Z-terps. And I would say, someone along that line, someone that has created a lot of, let me ask this question: living or not living?
Don't matter.
Jack Herrera.
Woo!
Come on now. Hey, wait, man, I had to think about that for a second, but man, Jack.
man, it's so crazy. When I first started going out with the Pharcyde, I'll say the first year I went with him, I was probably in Amsterdam 4 times that year, because that would, like, when they would do shows in Europe, that would kind of be the home base. And I'll say that Amsterdam was a really, I would say I blossomed in Amsterdam. Like I never. So my first evening in Amsterdam, I was in a coffee shop. And I was sitting next to a Jewish guy, and then on the other side of me was a Muslim guy. Mm-hmm. And we were all sitting and enjoying the coffee shop. And the conversation was kind of crazy because there was no politics as part of the conversation. There was nothing. It was just 3 people just kind of like enjoying the moment. And that was just like pretty amazing to me. And then I was at the time I was doing merch for the Pharcyde, and then me seeing that people, like, that there could be money made in merch. You know what I'm saying? Like, me seeing it with my eyes, where before that I pretty much thought like, okay, the only way I could become I'm not a millionaire, far from it, but it opened my eyes up to like me saying, a white collar job isn't the only way that you can be successful. Like, there is some other stuff that you can do out of there to put yourself in the mix and and to be successful, who would you like to inspire?
Well, number one, my kids, man. You know, like as a father, you know, they hear about, I say 15% of what you say, but they see 100% of what you do. So, you know, just knowing that I inspired the people that cohabitate with me is one thing. The next generation is the next person, because, you know, I tell people about HR 1242, which is the bill that Donald Trump signed saying ending 400 years of slavery. Now that has been ended and the study for reparations has actually started, what do we want that next generation to look like? And I want to inspire that next generation to not only hold America accountable, but make sure that we end the racism and you know, just the unfairness that's going on. So I want to inspire the next generation to have a voice and to hold America accountable. And then the next thing is just my community, you know, just being able to, you know, back to what Kendrick Lamar said, like we got to get past these perspectives and get to the point where we can support and heal each other.
Mm-hmm. No, that's dope. If you could have your dream verses, dead or alive, who would it be?
Prince against Michael Jackson.
That's
the only two people I know with that type of body of work, but I know I'm gonna enjoy it.
I feel like Steve Harvey, man. That has been the most popular answer of that question since we've asked it. You know what I'm saying? That has been the most popular. They want to see Mike, and it's interesting. I've had people fight it on both ends, but more people have kind of leaned towards Mike. But I just tell them, like, okay, Mike was dope. He could sing a song. He didn't write all his songs. Right. But Prince played all the instruments on Dirty Mind. He played every single instrument on Dirty Mind. So it's kind of like, yeah, that would be a good one. If you ruled the world, what would be one thing you would change? Oh, all right, we got you back.
There you go.
Okay, cool. All right, we got you back.
The audio went out. Sorry.
No problem. If you ruled the world, what would be the one thing you change?
You know, the one thing that I would want to change is a lot of people that don't believe racism exists. You know, for just a week, I would want the roles to be changed, just for them to be able to experience and to, you know, feel, you know, what it's like to be in America and to be treated like a third-class citizen.
Man, oh man. You know something that I kind of caught myself doing when I would drive and people wouldn't let me over or would cut me off or just whatever. I never have road rage or nothing like that. Like, man, it take a family member to make me rise beyond a 5 or 6, you know, as part of my temperature. But I used to immediately go and I'd be like, man, it's because I was black and they were white or just blah, 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 blah. And then as I got older, the perspective kind of turned into, 1, they might not have seen you. 2, they might have made a mistake. Or 3, they could be a horrible person, but they might not be racist, you know?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So now when I encounter things, you know, it's a trip. I have a saying where if you ain't talking about my mother by first name and last name, or my father by first name and last name, it's not personal. It may be something I don't like. It may be weird. It may irritate me or whatever, but it's not personal. You know what I'm saying? So this has been a dope interview, man. It's man, I feel like we can just morph so many more off of this, but I'm gonna end it with asking you, where do you see social progression going in the next 2 years?
So I've been really trying to follow this reparation study to, you know, just basically see how do we right the 450 years of suffrage that have already occurred. What I see happening, like literally immediately now and going over the next 2 years, is us dealing with mental health in America. And, you know, when you talk about like the Holocaust and how they say that trauma passed down from generation to generation, we now have to look at slavery and see how that trauma has passed down from generation to generation and see how we can stop that cycle, heal people, and actually bring communities together. You know, coming from Chicago, seeing all the senseless shootings that happened, you know, that is really my prayer, that we stop blaming the victims and we actually deal with the trauma that's going on and come to resolutions that get people healed and bring people together.
Man, that's dope, man. That's dope. That's a good look. So with that being said, man, this was a dope interview, man. It was very we talked kind of a lot, but I feel like I got a lot out of this interview that I didn't know. You want to give us the Bel Air social media? Yep.
So we're on Instagram as Bel Air, BELAIR, and then there's going to be an _cannabis for Instagram and Twitter. And then the webpage will be belair/cannabis.com.
Okay. I just had to give you the little shout outs. Well, man. I appreciate you, man.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, somebody I could call a friend. I appreciate you as somebody I can learn a little bit of something from, and for being a good guy in the cannabis space. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, a real good guy. So with that being said, this has been another episode of Splendid Radio on Pharcyde TV. Thanks, Keith. Peace.